Well, it seems we can add in another military pastor connection to the TPUSA Faith little family here. These two were already on my radar before Candace said yesterday that there is some odd connection between former military people and the pastors that are a part of TPUSA Faith. Before we get into that, if you could do me a favor and just hit that like button. Between that and just including a comment at the bottom of this video, that's really all you need to do to help any creator. I respond to just about all of my comments because I really am interested to know what you think about the topic. So let's get into this. So this is Victor and Eileen Marx, and these two were on my radar once they made a statement earlier in the week. It might have been at the end of last week, but they've been on my radar, and I was already starting to look into them. And when Candace said yesterday that there was some odd connection between the pastors and military, the light bulb just went on, and I was like, okay, let's reopen that. And the things I found out about this gentleman are very interesting, and I think it might explain kind of the goal of what we're seeing here, because this gentleman is running for governor in Colorado. And yeah, there's a lot to this. So let me start out. I'm going to start out by playing you the statement that they made that kind of piqued my interest.
The Kirks, ever since we've known them, through the good, the seasons, the bad, the heartbreak, and we want to tell you firsthand that Erika, she's a godly wife, she's a godly widow, and she's a godly mother. And we're still with them. We can tell you firsthand because we communicate with her. The pain she's carrying is real. The love they shared was real. Whatever people want to say, I'm not some Zionist puppet. I'm not controlled or paid by Turning Point. I just have friends that work there and lead there, from Andrew to the McCoys to dear friend Frank. This should be a time of compassion, not accusation. But social media has become a place where too many people feel brave behind the camera or the mic, saying things they would never say face to face because there's no consequences. But let me tell you, there are consequences, moral ones. And when you lie about a grieving widow, you're not exposing truth, you're partnering with darkness. So let me be clear, we're not going to play into the stupidity of social media spin, and you shouldn't either. We're going to stay with the facts. And we know the people involved, like I said before. We know the truth of their character, and no amount of digital cowardice will change that.
And I want to address this last photo. It has just gone viral about Erika hugging Vice President Vance. She put her hand on his head. And you know what? That's because Erika is a very warm and tender person. She did that to me when I went to hug her, to comfort her in her time of incredible grief. She was trying to comfort me.
I was at the funeral home. Everyone grieves differently. So I take into consideration people who knew Charlie and know Erika. They're going to grieve, and sometimes there's anger. They're trying to place it on someone. I get all that. But what I want to tell y'all is stop judging a godly woman who is a widow and a mother to 2 little babies. Mm-hmm. It's evil what people are doing. And please, those of you who stand for righteousness, don't play into this insanity, this evil that's being spread. Shut it down. Share this video so that the truth can get out. And man, I pray to God this will slow the nastiness and evil being spewed on social media right now. We thank you, and God bless y'all.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm getting a little tired of all these TPUSA Faith ministers lecturing us all. I mean, you guys can have your belief system, and that's fine for you, but you really need to stop trying to impose it on everybody else. And Mr. Marx, if you ever see this video, I promise you, I would say all of this to your face. And the first thing that got me was the way she stood there so stiff and still until it was her turn to talk. And then she came up with the explanation of why it is that Erika Kirk put her fingers all over J.D. Vance's hair. Now, I'm sorry, but maybe something different goes on in evangelical circles, but in my circles, my Catholic circles, you don't do that to someone else's husband, let alone a friend's husband. So it still strikes me as odd, and it's even more odd that these people are excusing it. But let's go back to the beginning and let's talk a little bit about Victor Marx. Now, Victor is from Louisiana. Apparently, when he was a very young boy, he went through a very traumatic incident, and this is YouTube, so I don't want to say too much about it. Suffice it to say that he survived this incident, but it was traumatic, and it has been a guiding light for much of his life and much of his ministries. Now, Victor, when he was a young man, he joined the Marine Corps, and he believed that it was his Marine Corps background that helped him to overcome the trauma of his childhood. And serving as a Marine, he was considered a weapons expert. Now, all these military men involved in this TPUSA Faith situation. Now, I watch Nate from Valhalla VFT. I watch Gary from Paramount Tactical, Range Day Bro. I watch all these former military men evaluate and discuss the potential weaponry involved in the FBI narrative about what happened to Charlie Kirk. And it seems to me that a weapons expert ought to know what just about everybody else on the internet at this point knows about the potential of a 30-06 not having an exit wound. I mean, if he is in fact a weapons expert, shouldn't he have more to say about the FBI narrative? Like, how are all these former military men so quiet on something that is so obvious, even to the uneducated people when it comes to weaponry throughout the internet? We have all figured out what is and what is not possible, but these weapons experts haven't been able to puzzle it out, that the narrative makes no sense. I find it very disconcerting. Or perhaps maybe a better way to describe it is I find it very disingenuous. But anyway, moving right along. While he was never deployed while part of the military, once he left the military and started his ministry, which is known as the All Things Possible Ministries, based in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and the focus is on trauma intervention and that, which I can't say on YouTube, I apologize, but he focused on global operations, including high-risk missions in Gaza, Israel, Iraq, Syria, and Southeast Asia. Now, that to me speaks volumes. Now, I also looked to see whether or not he had any connection to Tim Ballard. I was not able to find any direct connection other than their sort of tangential connection to TPUSA and the TPUSA Faith and Charlie. But they are doing essentially the same things, working in the same circles. So we're dealing with people who all seem to have a singular focus. And please know, I apologize in advance. I'm talking very carefully here because I'm choosing my words very carefully. And that's to please the YouTube gods. So he and his wife worked together in this ministry based in Colorado. And I have to say, all these people and these organizations looking to fight this singular scourge against children. Again, saying my words very carefully here. And yet, I don't see it getting any better. So what all are these people doing? I have to ask that question. It kind of comes up for me. As near as I can trace, he became definitely involved in TPUSA and had a relationship with Charlie Kirk by 2023, when he was, in fact, one of the key speakers at the TPUSA Pastors Summit in San Diego. And there he gave a speech about his humanitarian work in Israel, Iraq, Syria, North Africa, and Southeast Asia. Now, when you add this to the other military connections that Candace seems to be finding, I find it odd that TPUSA is so determined to have all these military men turned pastors and humanitarians as the basis of their TPUSA faith. Now, one thing that I also find a little bit concerning is the fact that they all seem to also have political aspirations. So first they are involving themselves in this TPUSA faith, spreading TPUSA faith, spreading TPUSA message, and then they are moving into positions of government power. Do you see what I'm saying there? Now, as I was looking into Mr. Marx, I came across this article. And this is from a group known as the Ministry Watch. And my assumption, I didn't look into it too deeply, but I believe what they do is they're kind of a watchdog on ministries and charities and kind of rate them on their effectiveness and how much of the donor money goes to the charities, things like that. So I came across this article. Former Marine Victor Marx claims to bring comfort toys to children in Israel. The ministry claims to go into hard-to-access areas to deliver toys and services to traumatized women and children, but details are few. So, needless to say, that sparked my interest, and I wanted to read more. Now, the article says, in an Instagram post on October 12th, Marx appeared with his wife, Eileen, saying they had received an invitation to go into Israel. This was in 2023. This is typical of our ministry. We go into places where chaos and bad things are happening to help, Marx said. Both of them admitted they did not want to go on the mission when they first learned of the opportunity. These two, who name themselves the Lion and the Lamb, or their missions are named the Lion and the Lamb, something like that, referring to the two of them, I'm guessing they soldiered on. But they felt the Lord told them to go bring comfort to those who mourn. They expected to deliver 1,200 Lion and Lamb trauma healing toys for children. All Things Possible Ministry claims it has delivered over 65,000 of these toys to children worldwide. Now, normally I would have a problem with the way that the language of the article is steering the opinion. However, in this case, I gotta say, I'm kind of with them on it. I don't know. Something about these two, just that initial statement that I saw, something's not sitting right with me. On their website, ATP describes the Israel mission as providing trauma relief to children, women, and families, comforting those who mourn, offering specialized training and medical care to those in need, and bringing good news. They also ask for donations to support the work, $20 per delivered toy. Ministry Watch reached out multiple times to ATP for an interview to get answers about the mission, its impact, its growth, if it partners with locals on the ground, and how they vet potential partners, but received no answers. In the Ministry Watch database, with God, All Things Are Possible, also known as All Things Possible Ministries, receives a 1-star financial efficiency rating, which is Ministry Watch's lowest financial efficiency rating. The reason for these low ratings are the ministry spent only about half of the $7 million it raised on ministry or program purposes. 12% of the ministry's expenses went to fundraising. In 2018, that ratio was 16%. Other ministries in this peer group spent only about 5% on fundraising. So, yeah, that's a problem. They do, however, have an A transparency grade and a donor confidence score of 75. Victor Marx, the chairman and president, receives compensation of about $200,000 per year, and Eileen Marx is the executive vice president with a salary of $80,000 a year. The organization doubled its revenue between 2020 and 2021 from $3.4 million to $7 million. It also more than doubled its fundraising expenses in that same time period from about $373,000 to $832,000. I mean, I have to be honest, I'm not too happy with those numbers, but, I unfortunately, I don't think that that's very unusual for charities these days. Not a lot of it actually goes to the purposes that they're intended to. Nonprofits used to be, the people who worked for them got paid peanuts while all the money went to whatever it was that they were supposed to be working for. That's not the case anymore these days. But we go on because there's more. Now, as you saw in that initial video, their presentation, they were in fact amongst the people that went to Utah to be with Erika when the unfortunate incident occurred. Now, what's interesting is they went from Colorado on September 10th and arrived in Utah by, I would imagine, September 12th, and they were there with Erika until she flew back to Arizona. And we know that because of the post that Victor put on his X account saying his job was to make sure that she got home safely to her children. Now, between this and the planes that are flying in and out of Provo, Utah, I get the feeling, like, what were they all flying on private planes to get here? How is that possible? It seems that everybody was jumping on planes and getting there within a blink of an eye. I mean, granted, I'm pretty sure no one's jumping on a plane if something happens to me. And so for me, that does seem a little bit odd. But the whole TPUSA organization seemed to have jumped onto a private jet and ended up in Provo, Utah. I just find that a little disconcerting. So between that, to me, rather bizarre statement, the gentleman's military background, weapons expert, his humanitarian missions in Israel, Gaza, Iraq, Syria, etc., and their presence right there in the thick of things in September, I thought that this was another pastor to add into the pattern that Candace is starting to lay out. And like I said, the fact that he is running for governor of the state of Colorado, I find that disconcerting. Here you have Phil Lyman, who was the gubernatorial candidate for Utah, and now we have a gubernatorial candidate for Colorado involved in the mix. Now, granted, we also have the President of the United States, the Vice President, because Charlie was clearly politically connected. Is it that odd, therefore, that people connected to him would be involved in politics? No, not necessarily. But these aren't people running for small positions. They're running for very important ones. And that's what I think makes it a little bit different. But do let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Please don't forget to hit like. YouTube doesn't like the fact that I talk about these things. So the more that you can engage, whether you hit the like, write a comment, the more likely it is that more people will get to see my videos. And thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great day.